Hello everyone and welcome to Now You're Playing with Power, a Nintendo podcast brought to you from up north and down south. My name is NYPPQuestions and I'm your host as per the usual. And yeah, we've got a show for you this week. It probably won't run as long as the last one because that was a special and we went a little overboard on our feature topic, but it was worth it, and I think it... hopefully you guys enjoyed it. So anyway, let's introduce the co-host who's the one in the south. It's Bally. How are you doing, Bally?
I'm good, NYPPQuestions, yes. I definitely enjoyed that special.
Yeah.
We should definitely do that more often.
Totally. There's milestone episodes that will come up and should make use of them for certain. So, anyway, today's show we're going to be jumping back to a more traditional thing with our three segments as the usual. We're going to have what we've been playing, then listener mail, and then Bally. What's our third segment going to be?
We're going to talk about a bit of news and sort of how Nintendo is doing in these months that are leading up into the crucial E3 period, I guess.
Yeah, a bit of just laying the cards on the table and talking a bit about the state of Nintendo, and we always like to check in and do a bit of industry talk. So I guess that's what we'll do. And not really any.
It's been a while.
Yeah, not really any solid topic, but we'll talk around it. Anyway, we're going to kick off with what we have been playing recently. And Bally, you want to tell me what stuff you've been diving into?
Yeah, so I've been playing a bit more Need for Speed, Most Wanted You, that horrendously long name.
Yes.
And although I've talked about it before on the podcast, I thought I'd talk more about something I didn't mention, which was the Nintendo Wii U Pro controller. I think I've said that correctly.
Yes.
And so I bought this on Amazon about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and it cost £35, I seem to remember.
33, I think.
33, yeah, no, you're right, 33. And it's in black, and it's probably one of the best Nintendo controllers I've ever played with. Obviously, I do like the Wiimote and Nunchuck combo, but I think there's something about the GameCube pad and now this pad that is just so much nicer just to have a generic, not generic, that's a bad word to use, but like
it is very generic when you think about it. It is generic.
No, it's like
it is essentially a 360 controller. It's the same shape, same size, and I don't know what the weight's like. How do you feel it is in your hands?
It's quite light, but not so light. I mean, imagine the Wii U gamepad, but half its size and the equivalent weight.
Right. Okay. Same weight as the gamepad.
No, well, lighter than the gamepad because it's smaller. But
sure.
Yeah. One thing I would say is that, like the gamepad, it's maybe a little funny that on the right analog stick, it's where your thumb naturally is. Whereas if you compare that to a PlayStation controller, that's where the X is X, circle, square,
triangle,
that's the one. X, circle, square, triangle would normally be. So it does maybe feel a bit funny that when you want to use the B, A, Y, and X buttons, they're kind of, your thumb is going across the controller a bit. They're kind of situated where the C stick would have been situated on the GameCube, which is maybe a little funny.
It's basically an inverse of the Xbox 360 controller, where the stick is at the top, but the buttons are below.
Yeah, or even the inverse of the GameCube controller.
And do you feel that's like a huge detriment to it? Do you think they should have just gone traditional instead of just being different for the sake of being different?
Well, in Need for Speed Most Wanted, you're never really using that analog stick, and you're never even using the buttons, really. I mean, you use the B
shoulders, right?
You use the shoulders to accelerate, left analog stick to steer, and you're only using the B button to boost, to use your nitros, use your turbo. So you're
never really using the second stick for like camera control or anything?
Well, you can do a fancy swivel of your car when you're feeling cocky and you're not going to crash into anything, but other than showing off and checking your car every now and then, you're not really using it much. No, not at all. So it's probably a poor game to judge it by. I mean, probably a first-person shooter would be far more fair to judge it by in terms of that. But
definitely, yeah.
It comes with a USB cable, and the Wii U's got 2 USB plugs in the back and 2 in the front, which is quite handy because that relates to what I'm going to talk about after this. And yeah, it comes with a cable, and I've charged it once since I bought it, and I've never charged it again yet. So I've read online, I think it's got about 50 hours of charge, which is great.
Apparently it's around 80.
80?
Which is ridiculous.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I've not had to charge it yet. I mean, I've maybe played 6, 7, 8 hours of Need for Speed. I can't remember now. But yeah, it works fine. I was a bit worried that I'd constantly be having to charge my pad and my brand new Wii U Pro controller, and then when I've got my hard drive plugged in, I'd have to fiddle around, and but it all works well. It's nice that the Wii U's got the USB ports on the front. That's a very logical step.
Definitely.
That you wouldn't really put your money on Nintendo making, but they managed to do it this time, which is nice.
Right.
But overall, great controller, and yeah, Need for Speed is going on as usual. But the main reason I bought this was because I was scared that with Smash Bros coming out and Mario Kart coming out and so much gaming time in the horizon that I was just gonna wear away my Wii U gamepad analog stick. I mean, I think it's the same springs that they use in the nunchuck, and I must say that my nunchucks, even after hours upon hours of use, are still they've not. The springs haven't given away at all, which is good. So, but I was just doing it as a caution. Plus, it's quite nice to just play on a smaller controller rather than have the big pad with something like Mario Kart and Smash Brothers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm gonna have to invest in one of these for those games because I don't want to be holding the gamepad the entire time with those. And plus, you know, for multiplayer and stuff, it's gonna be needed. So I'll get on that. But you also mentioned talk of a hard drive.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about how that came to be?
I have what is going to become in the future quite a rare commodity, which is the Wii U 30 gig. No, not 30 gig.
Basic. It's called the Basic.
It's called the Wii U Basic. Yeah, it's the original white one. I admit right now it was a massive mistake buying the white one. I should have got the black one because just having the larger hard drive would have been a nicer experience. Because I'd be able to download lots of demos and not worry about it filling up. Because even like Wonderful 101 demos and stuff like that, they actually take up quite a bit of memory.
Yeah, definitely.
So the reason I bought the hard drive was because maybe you could explain your Amazon story, MBZ.
My Amazon story.
You don't know Nintendo Land story?
Oh, right, yeah. So basically, after the launch of Wii U, there were certain Wii U Premium bundles shipped by Amazon that did not contain a copy of Nintendo Land in them. So what Amazon did in order to, counteract this, instead of, individually shipping copies of Nintendo Land to people who didn't have them, they sent a blanket email to every single person who had purchased Wii U Premium. And they said, here is a code for a download copy of Nintendo Land. So even people who got it in the box still got this code for a download copy of Nintendo Land. And I got it. I was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I already own it, but, this is something I could potentially give to someone. And I knew that Bally was going to get a Wii U eventually. He didn't have one at the time. But I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait until Bally gets a Wii U, and then he can take this from me. I have the download code, and he'll be able to have Nintendo Land free of charge, which would be really cool. And so I kept a hold of it for a long time, and Bally eventually got his Wii U. And then we ran into the problem, which was that he did not have enough storage space because he had the 8GB one. And yeah, so you're in a...
And I think naming it the 8GB one is misleading by Nintendo. And it's not just Nintendo that do this. All the companies do this. It's called the 8GB version, the 32, the 30 gig, whatever. But there's always quite a bit of space already taken up by sort of, I don't know the technical word for it, formatting of the system or something. There's already data in the system that is taking up room. So yeah, so I knew that eventually I wanted a hard drive so I could get a free copy of Nintendo Land, not to mention potentially downloading more stuff. So I bought the Toshiba HD TB105 EK3AA 500GB hard drive.
Thanks for that, we totally needed the entire...
just in case you wanted the specific model. And yeah, so you have to use what's called a Y cable to plug it into the Wii U, which is basically two USBs that go into the hard drive. And you plug those two USBs into the back of the Wii U and then into the hard drive, and that's to ensure that enough power is going into the hard drive to operate smoothly with like the Wii U, basically. So
you can run games basically and not have them crash.
That's exactly, rather than just, I don't know, Word documents or music or something. I don't know. But yeah, so I ordered that. It came, and then downloaded Nintendo Land. I've not even had the time to touch it yet, but that's something I'm going to get on to playing soon. I also downloaded Advance Wars because I was very excited for that to come out, and I'm looking forward to it. I've not played Advance Wars in a long time, but the main game that I've been playing this past 2 weeks has been Warioware, the original Warioware Inc. on the GBA, on the Ambassador program on my 3DS, and I already owned the GameCube version, which is just a remake of it. And while the GameCube version, in my opinion, added a lot of great multiplayer stuff, it actually kind of took out a lot of the stuff that's in the original game that I'm sort of rediscovering almost, like because they took out the GameCube one, like I said. So sort of boss battles or little what do you call them, like toys? What are they called? Like not micro games.
They call them toys. They're like they're more minigame-esque than the actual WarioWare. Like there's like the ping pong one. We talked about this. Like in WarioWare Touched on DS, there was the ping pong game where one person had one screen of the DS and you'd use the shoulder buttons to play a game of table tennis across it. Stuff like that, where it's kind of multiplayer and there's some single player ones as well. And they kind of just expand it into like a high score type thing.
Yeah, so it's nice that there's stuff that I've not experienced before, and I think it works so much. It's so much nicer to play it on a handheld and not the GameCube. I mean, don't get me wrong, the GameCube version's probably up there in my maybe top two. Probably my favorite after Twisted. I'd have to say the GameCube one, but this one honestly is right up there because playing it on the handheld's great. And yeah, I mean, we were having the discussion, NBZ, that, I mean, Nintendo's always talked about, they're going to move into the iOS market. I mean, they're losing too much market share. They need to try something in that marketplace. And we came up with the idea, like, surely, like, WarioWare is the answer. It's short 5-second micro games that you could, and I mean, WarioWare Touched is a great example that how a touchscreen can be implemented into mini games, and that is honestly a really great WarioWare game that they should give it a go.
I mean, not only that, but phones have all of the, gyro and accelerometer built into them. It's very easy to do Twisted-esque stuff. There's the touchscreen. There's so many applications. There's, front-facing cameras. There's so much you can do with a WarioWare game that uses all of those functions on a phone that it really does make sense. Like, as any franchise that Nintendo would put on a phone, WarioWare, without a doubt, makes the most sense. That could easily just be shipped onto it and not have to have that much changed about it. Of course, they'd have to develop a brand new game specifically for the platform, but they are used to working with those kind of interfaces, and I'm sure they'd do some really interesting stuff. So, and
the cool thing about WarioWare, and this when we were younger and it very first came out in something like 2002, 1,
yeah, probably
as early as that, and we were just like not even that interested in it. We were like, that looks really weird. I have no idea what that is. I mean, it was getting great reviews, but we were at the age where even a great review didn't make you buy a game. It was just your own personal, oh, we like that, look at that game or whatever.
Yeah.
So we kind of missed out on it at the early stages, and that's maybe one thing that you could say if it did go into the iOS market, is that this is an incredibly Japanese game. It is crazy. It is all the WarioWare games are absolutely mental. And I'm sure once iOS, let's call them Candy Crush players. I'm sure once Candy Crush players try WarioWare, they'll think, yeah, this is great. But I'm sure that initial step of picking it up might be quite tricky to market, and that might cause Nintendo a problem. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also a discussion of what kind of business model they would employ. Would they just make it a single-priced game? Would they implement free-to-play things and be like, hey, you can download the Jimmy pack for this many dollars, or you could download the Wario pack, and would they cut it up that way? And what, how would they approach it? I'd be interested to see how they would, enter that market, because there are so many ways to distribute mobile games these days that, they have a lot of options.
Well, interesting times for the future. So yeah, that's all I've been playing. MBZ, what you been on?
So I have jumped back into a franchise that has been on a lot of people's lips these days because a new entry in it has just come out. It's Infamous, because Second Son recently came out on PS4 and people really enjoying it.
It looks so good.
It looks
unreal. Like, if you've not seen the giant bomb quick look, I would highly recommend it.
Any footage of that game, I mean, you definitely have to see it in person, I guess, to get the full effect. But even in online video, it's gorgeous. It's jaw-droppingly nice, and yeah, I think that's really one of the big things about it. To be honest, like most of the reviews I read and the stuff that I kind of found out about the game while researching it was that it's not necessarily evolved so much in terms of gameplay, but it's a really nice graphical overhaul, and the new powers are really cool and stuff. So eventually, when I get a PS4, I will be very excited to jump into Second Son. But before I do that, I have to complete the game which comes before it, and that's what I've been playing. I've been playing Infamous 2 on PS3. And so I have this via PlayStation Plus. I don't have the physical disc. I just downloaded the digital copy, and I had it for a while. I kind of sat on it for some months because I beat the original Infamous. I think it was last year, actually. I beat it early last year, and I needed a break because I'd put so much time into that game. I needed a little bit of a rest from it. So I've come back to it now, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to dive full in. I'm going to go through and beat this game. And the thing about Infamous that I find really fascinating when it comes to me and like my opinion of open world games is I find myself doing everything in an Infamous game, despite the fact that in Red Dead Redemption, I just went mission to mission and mainlined it and just, critical pathed everything and wasn't interested in the side stuff at all. The thing that draws me about Infamous is that you can get so easily sidetracked on almost anything, because there are so much stuff to collect around the city, and there are so many side missions scattered everywhere, that there's this almost compulsive thing that happens to me where I'm like,
sorry, what's an example of like a side mission then when you're walking along? Like what does it entail?
So there are a couple of different types of side missions. There's the standard go up to an NPC and then they'll be like, oh, there are monsters in the park, please kill them all, and so the park can be freed. So you go over to the park and you have a bunch of monsters and you have to kill them in different ways, grenades and shit, and just take them down, which, the combat is fun enough. It's not super intense and it's not super complex.
Is there like L targeting and stuff, or?
No, there isn't. There's not really any auto-aim of any description. It's, I think Infamous can be described as a third-person shooter, but that's kind of reductionist to a point where, it's not hiding behind cover and that sort of stuff. You do use cover with buildings, but you have grenades, electric grenades, and you have like upgrades to all your weapons, and you can like lift cars in the air and throw them at enemies, and then you have your physical weapon called the amp, which is what you're using on a lot of there's swamp monsters in the game. It's what you're using on a lot of those guys. So there's a lot of variety there to keep yourself occupied. But yeah, I wouldn't be so reductionist and to call it like a third-person shooter. But there are those side missions which are well and good. And the reason I do all of those is because you regain control of certain areas on the map. So at the beginning of the game, the map is completely controlled by enemies, and wherever you go, random enemies will spawn. So you're, like, at the very beginning of the game, you're very weak and vulnerable, and there are people everywhere trying to kill you. So what doing the side missions does is when you beat one of them, it locks out a small area of the city as being said, like, enemies will no longer spawn here. Like, this is a safe zone, enemies won't come back to this area, and you have essentially taken control of it. So the reason it becomes like obsessive compulsive is because I want to have a clean map right? I don't want any enemies anymore in any of the parts of the map. So if there is a small circle like in the center of areas that I've beaten and I've taken control of, I need to do that mission so that I clear it completely and the whole map is taken over by myself.
And do those new missions respawn in the areas you've cleared?
No. Once you've cleared an area, that's the side mission
And
done
that's
with.
done. It's behind you and it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm so like drawn into doing everything in this game, because, and not only that, but doing missions actually gains you experience, and the way that you expand your powers is by spending experience on things. So it's actually really good to go and do those so that you have an ample amount of experience to spend on powers, and you can upgrade yourself a lot quicker than you would be able to otherwise. So
But
yeah, it puts you in a nice position.
Most importantly, are you playing light side or dark side?
Well, see, here's the thing. So I played the original Infamous as a good guy, because I was like, you know what, I might as well. It's, you know, it just is one of those things. I find it quite hard to play as an evil bastard, because you're like murdering civilians and stuff, and it just doesn't feel good, you know? I'm not that kind of person. Even though in GTA, like, you can run around and murder people, that's a very different thing, because in GTA I never really played the main storyline. But, you know, going through the main storyline, I was like, I want to be a good guy. When it came to Infamous 2, I was like, you know, fuck it, I'm going to be bad. I'm going to do it. Look, I'm going to be bad.
You did an Anakin. You actually did an Anakin. That's really great.
No. I was going to do an Anakin. But what I found out is that if you have played Infamous 1, your save file will be detected on the PS3. And because I played through as a good guy on the first Infamous, it said if you play through as a good guy in the second one, we'll give you like early bonuses and you'll get a higher chance to, you know, get upgrades quicker and stuff, and like you get more experience. And I was like, oh god, fine. So I ended up playing as a good guy again because I wanted that stuff.
So you did do an Anakin. You were bad, then good, and then good, then bad, and good again.
Well, I didn't quite go fully down the bad route, so
fair
I didn't quite push it that far. But sure, if you want to use such an analogy, then
brought
it is
balance
quite.
To the force.
I brought, yeah, definitely. Let's go with that.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. The other thing which I was talking about, like distracting me, was the blast shards, which are basically, if you want to upgrade your health, you need to collect these tiny little pieces, these shards they're called, and they're just scattered everywhere around the city, and they're like off the side of buildings, on top of buildings, underneath things. You know, there are bombs strapped to walls which you have to drain the electricity out of and then get a shard from. They're just everywhere, and so as soon as you get to a new area and you start clearing it out, you just find I just find myself going off the beaten path and finding all the shards that I can, because you see one and then you're like, oh, there's one over there, and then you get to that area, oh, there's one over there. So you get to this point where you're not even going to the main missions or the side missions anymore, you're just running around collecting shards, and it becomes obsessive compulsive.
And you think they successfully designed the game on purpose to do that, to say, you know what, we're going to prolong your playing time of our game by making these little side missions so kind of addictive.
Yeah, they're very tantalizing. I think that's something that they've done in the world design, is everything's quite dense. You know, the city isn't massive. It's not kind of on the scale of a GTA 5 or anything, but yeah, you're definitely kind of encouraged to go after that stuff, because not only is it beneficial for you in the long run to, you know, upgrade your health by getting those, but a lot of them are like platforming challenges. And I really love the traversal in Infamous and how easy it is to get around. So you'll see a shard like up all the top on this high building, and you have to figure out like, okay, how do I get up there? I need to figure out a way up this building, use my platforming prowess and get up there. And, you know, I'm a guy who loves platformers, so that's something that draws me in as well. So I guess to a degree that's definitely a thing that that is important, you know?
And how's the story?
So the story's okay. I mean, this is a game which I'm playing with podcasts most of the time, because a lot of it is I'm clearing out side missions, so I don't need to hear the jibber-jabber of what people are saying. It's not really that interesting to me. The premise is that after the first game, you know, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but you go to a new city, and there's like this beast coming that's going to like destroy the world. And so the game is, a lot of it is, every time you get past a certain story mission, it'll be like, the beast is 700 miles from New Marais, which is the city you're in. And so, you know, it's building up eventually to the end game where you're going to fight this giant monster who's I guess going to be ridiculous and really hard to take on. But it's interesting. There are some cool side characters. There's some more kind of people with powers coming along. New conduits is what they call them. People with powers. So like one of the people who was in your crew originally is now someone with ice powers, and then you find someone else who has fire powers. And depending on which route you choose, you get access to those. I think I'm on the story mission right before I get access to the ice powers, because if you play as a good guy, you get those. If you play as a bad guy, you get access to fire powers. So there's a good reason to play through again if you want to get access to the different power set. So I'm interested to try that out when I get to that.
And your main power is electricity, like the first game, but you can unlock, you're saying, ice or fire. Is that all the powers in this game?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think they push the envelope too much. Electricity is the main one that you carry over, and then you're going to get access to these other powers, which is cool. I believe there's like 4 in Second Son, so they really made it very different there. But yeah, they kept it relatively simple here. But I appreciate it. I appreciate they did something different there and didn't just stick with electricity for the entirety of both games, because as fun as it is, you need a little bit of a shake-up. So that's cool. Yeah, so I've really been enjoying that, and I'm maybe about 50% of the way through in terms of main story missions. And yeah, I'll definitely be hitting it hard. I'm going down to London next week, so I won't be doing any console gaming. I'll be bringing my handhelds with me. That's the thing which I would really like.
Console game with me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the thing I'd really like is if there was like the remote play for PS3 and Vita, like there is for PS4 and Vita. For what you can do with PS4 and Vita is like you can be in somewhere completely different across the other side of the world, and if you have access to an internet connection, you can remote play on your Vita through that internet connection from your PS4 at home, which is just cool. That's really awesome. So yeah, that would be great, and I think that's something you can do with Second Son actually, because it supports it on PS4. So, maybe one day when I'm down in London, I'll be playing, Infamous on my Vita while the PS4 is on at my house at home. So, yeah, that sounds like a really cool thing. So
cool.
So yeah, but that's pretty much it, I guess. I think I was gonna talk about another game, but we're running out of time here, so I think I'm just gonna leave it there with Infamous. That's really the majority of what I've been doing. So spent a good amount of words doling out on that. So there you go. We're gonna take a break here, but we will return after that with some new listener mail that you guys have been sending to us. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Okay, and welcome back to the show. We have a listener mail segment here, which we didn't do last time because of our feature, but we have quite a lot of correspondence, so let's get straight into it. And Bally has the first one.
So the first mail is from Bruno Garcia, and he says, "Hello MBZ and Bally, I really enjoy the show. Thanks for making going to work less boring. Have you guys played Fire Emblem 6 Binding Blade? If so, what was your experience with it? I've been playing, but the growth rates of all the characters are ridiculous. Weapons accuracy is awful, and enemy units seem to be stronger. So I'm about to give up on it. Next, can you recommend any other Nintendo-related podcasts? I only listen to you guys and the Nintendo show, but I'm up to date with both of them. If you guys have played Resident Evil Revelations, would you recommend it for someone who has never played a Resident Evil game before? Thank you for your time and thanks for the podcast. It's great." So I guess the first question is about Binding Blade.
Yeah, I have played this game. So for those unfamiliar with it, Binding Blade is the English name of the Japanese GBA Fire Emblem, which came out before Fire Emblem 7 and Sacred Stones, and was never released in the West. It was a Japan-only title, and you can tell it's a Japan-only title because, as Bruno makes note of, it is fucking difficult. It is extremely hard, and yeah, it's really punishing. And there is very clearly a play made by Intelligent Systems and Nintendo to make the game easier for Western audience. And you can definitely see like the difference, the gulf that was made, and how much they really dumbed it down for us, stupid Westerners who can't understand these Japanese games and have trouble with them. But I did play it. I haven't finished it. I got relatively far into it, and I do plan on Let's playing it at some point in the future. But yeah, it's tough, and I'm not surprised. I'd say like try and push through, especially because you're going to be playing it on an emulator. It's not really available in English in any other way. So I would say abuse save states, abuse the arena, and push through, because I think it's still a fun game. So
I'm just going to limp along with Sacred Stones.
You can do your best, Bally.
So the next point is, what are our favorite Nintendo related podcasts?
Well, this is a good one, because we listen to loads of podcasts.
We are massive fans.
And so there are a few that we can recommend. Right up front, I have to give a nod to my favorite podcast, one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. It's called Radio Free Nintendo, and it is hosted at NintendoWorldReport.com. This is a fantastic podcast. They've been going for about 7 years now, and they're
like one of the oldest podcasts, aren't they?
Yeah, like right since the beginning, the dawn of the inception of podcasts. They've been around since. And Nintendo World Report is, it's a website run by people who don't do it as their actual job. They don't get paid to do it. They're very much enthusiasts, and they're very good at what they do. And it really shows in the quality of their podcast. They have a few of them, but Radio Free Nintendo is the main one. And this is a podcast I recommend to anyone. Regardless of whether you're super interested in Nintendo or not. I mean, you have to be interested in video games, right? But regardless of whether you're interested in Nintendo or any other platforms, they are so insightful, and they always have interesting topics and such insight into the industry that every episode is quite fantastic. And
I feel like they're really good if you wanted to get into Nintendo but you're already experienced with other video games, because I mean they talk about lots of non-Nintendo games and how they relate and lots of stuff like that. So I think that they're quite a nice stepping stone.
Definitely. And I mean, one thing which I find really interesting is, when I started listening to this podcast, I was what you could probably classify as a Nintendo fanboy. Like, I didn't know anything about other consoles. I wasn't very familiar with, the industry at large. And ironically, by listening to a Nintendo podcast, I learned so much more about the other companies involved in the games industry and the industry at large, and it really opened my eyes to be more critical about the company as opposed to being a blind fanboy, following them, and I think that was great, because it means that I'm able to talk about video games on a much more interesting level now, and I can definitely thank them for giving me that, to be honest. So
yeah, I mean you got me into them, MBZ, like way back in 2010, 11.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean I was a bit on and off at first, but obviously now I'm completely consistently listening to them, and yeah, everything you've said I have to reiterate, really great. Another big one that we both listened to and I've only gotten into in the last few months is Nintendo Voice Chat, which is the IGN Nintendo podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's quite short. It's very, very, very Nintendo focused. At times one of them will go off on a tangent and start talking about something else, and then sort of Jose Otero will be like, "Nope, we can't talk about that. We're talking about Nintendo." And it does feel quite regimented at times, but that makes it sound negative. I mean, in a good way, like so. And they are very good at always talking about the most current stuff. So sometimes RFN might take a few weeks at times to pick up the newest games, or they're not there's far more of their opinion, whereas I feel like NVC is really good at being sort of cutting edge. What is the latest Nintendo hot topic? For example, right now they've got a whole Mario Kart 8 preview episode, which I mean that's the sort of thing that RFN wouldn't do. They wouldn't just do a whole episode dedicated to a new game. They would continue on as they do, whereas MVC is very like current, I'd say.
Right, and that has a lot to do with IGN as a company and the way that they operate and the fact that they get access to all this stuff and, it's their job. They get paid to do it, so, they don't get paid to do the podcast, obviously, but it's something that they do on the side to build fan base and stuff for IGN, and it certainly works, Podcast Beyond is their PlayStation podcast, which is their most popular one, and, I'm sure that all of their podcasts build like a huge audience and fan base for them, and it's a very important part of their business, even though it doesn't really make them money. It solidifies that core audience, and they focus very tightly on it, very laser focused on that stuff. So I would recommend Nintendo Voice Chat as well, definitely.
Now, we should say that we're into lots of other video game podcasts and non-video game podcasts, but I guess we could save those for another question if someone asks us about that, maybe.
Sure. We could just name drop some if you feel like it.
Yeah, go for a name drop, Sesh.
Well, obviously there's the Giant Bombcast, which it's not necessarily the most focused of shows, but one of the most entertaining. Without a shadow of a doubt, the thing I love about the Giant Bomb guys is that they don't seem to have any bias towards any company in the industry. They're very neutral ground, and they always have interesting opinions on everything, and they have such huge experience. They've been doing this since like back in the GameSpot days, a lot of them. So they're very funny to go along with that. So it makes a nice balance there. They have a fantastic show. It's also 3 hours long each week, which is sometimes hard to digest, but
a big one we're into until like a couple of months ago was Weekend Confirmed, which has now ended, and the co-hosts of that, Garnet Lee and Jeff Kanata, have both started their brand new podcast projects. I particularly enjoy Jeff Kanata's brand new DLC, which is all gaming, so it's not just video games. He also includes board gaming, because he's a big board gamer, as am I, and that's a big reason of why I like the podcast. I must admit that they spend, like, board games are kind of getting shoehorned in at the end at the moment, and I know that he wants to improve on that, because I mean a lot of his friends are still kind of new to board games, far more so than he is. And I mean, I guess that's a bit like me and you, NBZ, and
right,
I play lots, but you're kind of a bit interested and might be up for a few. So
sure, definitely.
But that's DLC. It's really great. And like I think all the ones we've said so far are weekly.
They are all weekly, yeah.
And then Garnet on Games is another one that is even newer than DLC. I think that it's now only on episode 4, 5.
Yeah, I think so.
And that is Garnet Lee by himself with a microphone for roughly an hour and a half. He's still working out segments and stuff, and he's talking about all kinds of industry news, all video games. I think Garnet on Games is a really great podcast. Actually, he's an incredibly great presenter, and the ability to hold a mic by yourself for an hour and a half, I think is really impressive.
Oh, extraordinarily, and being able to. It's hard. It's hard when you have no one to bounce off of. I struggle sometimes talking about games that Bally doesn't know about to keep my speech about it going. But Garnet somehow manages to do it for an hour and a half, no sweat, and he's a veteran of the industry, so he has a lot of experience. But that's a great show as well.
Any more? Shall we move on?
I have loads, but not enough time. We should move on to the next question.
We should. I mean, honestly, ask us more about podcasts. We love talking about them.
Definitely.
So have we played Resident Evil Revelations? What's our opinion on it?
So both of us are
confession time.
Both of us are massive pussies, and we don't like horror at all. I despise the horror genre in film and games, in any sort of media, in books even. Like, I just get the shit scared out of me so easily, and I can't handle it. I can't deal with it. So I'm not a fan of Resident Evil. I did play the demo of Revelations, but like I saw a zombie and just turned my 3DS off. Like, I was done. I can't handle.
I'm exactly the same. This sounds so funny, but yeah, just cannot handle it. Literally cannot handle it. For example, you come with me to see Prometheus, NBC?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. Well, I saw Prometheus, and that's only like a 15, and I just could not handle the horror in that film, and it's not
not
even
even
much
necessarily a horror film.
No, it's like friggin' sci-fi and shit, and I just couldn't handle like. Anyway, so yeah, and the second, like, that's a film, let alone something you're immersed in like a video game, and just
Right.
with all this virtual reality stuff coming out, it's just. I'm just moving further and further away from it. I just cannot handle it. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Definitely. Well, there we have it. Thanks for the questions, Bruno.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. So the next question's from Saint. You guys are probably going to be sick of hearing from me pretty soon. Sorry about that. Last time on March the 12th, you guys talked about the new Smash Brothers game. Do you think Nintendo will try to keep the 3DS and Wii U versions somewhat similar, or go for pretty different gameplay, maybe different unlockable players? You also said they were kind of shooting themselves in the foot releasing it for 2 platforms, but wouldn't only having a Wii U version possibly deter people from buying, as they would see a new system for it? Thanks for the great podcasts.
Okay. Well, this comes at a relatively topical time, because there will be a Nintendo Direct next week. In fact, actually, it will... See, here's the awkward thing. This Nintendo Direct will have happened by the time this episode goes out. But because of timing schedules, we're recording before that has happened. So I would have loved to be able to comment on this question with, the Nintendo Direct behind us. But we currently don't know what they're going to be discussing there. So unfortunately, we don't have the ability to see into the future. So.
I mean, we'll definitely talk about it briefly in our next episode, but I'm afraid you're going to have to wait until...
exactly. Until then, but
and I'm sure that will honestly answer a lot of these questions. I mean, so far we just know that the 3DS, you can have a black outline around your player. As far as we know, all the characters are the same. The stages are different in that the 3DS stages, I should say, are based upon handheld Nintendo games. Likewise, the Wii U version is based mainly around home console.
Yeah, I don't know if there will be crossover, or if Sakurai wants to keep those stages exclusive. Like, will there be, for example, DLC on Wii U to get, some of these handheld stages, or are they literally going to be cordoned off for that version alone?
But I mean, this is something we're definitely going to talk about in our next segment. So,
yeah,
I guess we could move on.
Maybe we should table this, and we'll approach that next time.
But I mean, we're definitely going to approach your questions. Just maybe now's a poor time to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Next question then. Hi guys, my name is Kareem. I'm a big fan of the podcast from Egypt and want to congratulate you guys on the great content so far. My question to the both of you guys: do you guys play any MMORPG games? If so, which ones? Also, have you heard about the upcoming Monster Hunter online game for PC? It is currently in closed beta in China and no news yet as to when it will migrate to the Europe or US. Do you believe it might influence sales on future installments of Monster Hunter on the Wii U system? Cheers.
Bally, have you ever played an MMO?
Nope.
Ever?
Okay, right. Well, like maybe when I was 17, 18, I saw some advert on telly for World of Warcraft.
You saw an advert. This is the closest you've got to...
I'm getting better. And then I went on my computer and downloaded the free demo.
Did you really?
I really did.
Oh my god.
And my character spawned, and then I gave up.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you did that.
I might have told. I can't remember if I've told. I guess I've not. But yeah, I like consolidated gaming experiences, and MMOs quite simply are not consolidated gaming experiences. So I'm afraid not.
So you never played RuneScape or any of those games?
Oh, briefly, like a tiny bit of RuneScape.
Right, because those are MMOs, right?
But yeah, it was.
They're not of the highest caliber, right? But they were.
I was not into it at all. I never will be, and I don't want to be.
Sure. I mean, like, that I was maybe 12 or so, maybe 12, 13, when I was playing RuneScape, and I got really hardcore into it. And I mean, the thing with MMOs really is, playing it with people is the draw. That's the draw, is because it's a online multiplayer experience, and especially when I was that young, that was a rare thing. It was kind of a brand new thing, and I was really interested in doing it. Skype didn't even exist back then, so you would have to type in the chat to people. But at my primary school, I was in like the last couple of years, and loads of people were playing it. Like I was playing it with at least 6 or 7 other people. We'd go to the computer room and we would all go into RuneScape and like level up and do quests with each other and stuff, and it was a great time. And I really understand like the social aspect of the MMO and why it is so popular on that wavelength. But once I'd fallen off of that and wasn't really interested anymore, I never really got back into any of them. And you definitely needed like a really powerful PC in order to run the good ones, like World of Warcraft at the time, and I just didn't have access to anything like that. I had my laptop, but that was nowhere near capable of producing the graphics that were needed and being able to load all these giant areas and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I fell off it for a long time. And then actually relatively recently, when I got my new PC, I was like, you know what, let me try an MMO, because there are so many of them that are free to play these days, and are really interesting. And so I was like, I heard a lot about Jeff Kanata talk about Terra Online on Weekend Confirmed. I was like, okay, this is free to play now, so I was like, yeah, I'll try this out and see what it's like. And I downloaded it, and I made a character, like fucking hot elf chick, because why not, right? Customization options, gotta go with the hot elf chick, and that's what I rolled with. And in Terra, the less clothes you have, the higher your armor is, because anime and MMO, and that's how it works. So my quest was to get the least clothes possible, but I didn't really play it that much. I didn't have anyone to play it with. I think I streamed it a couple of times. Did you watch me play it at all, Bally? You saw me play a bit of Terra?
Not that I can remember.
I remember showing you a screen cap of my character.
But my memory.
Oh yeah, exactly, like a sieve. And yeah, I played Terra for a decent amount of time. Honestly, I went and did some stuff with it, but yeah, I didn't really get hardcore into it. I think I still have it installed on my PC, so I might go back to it at some point and mess around. The one thing I will mention is that it looked gorgeous. Wow, it looked amazing. One of the best looking games I'd seen at that point in my life. So now I've seen stuff that looks quite a bit better because I have other PC games, but yeah, it really stuck out to me there. It was really interesting. So anyway, he was also asking about like Monster Hunter, and this PC game which came out in China. From what I've heard, I haven't heard that much about it, is that people don't seem to be that into it. It doesn't seem to be doing that well. So the degree to which it will infringe upon sales on Wii U, I would say, is very minimal, to be honest. Especially as it's only available in China right now. We don't know whether it will be in other parts of the world. That, and the thing is with China is they've had like a 10-year ban on consoles, which only just lifted recently. So there, like before that had happened, there was no chance that Wii U was even being released in that country. So it's something that I don't think will happen. And we've talked about our limited experience with Monster Hunter before, but there you go. I think that pretty much covers it. So there you have it.
So the next question or questions are from Daniel Bunzelmeyer. Hello, Bally and Zed. I'm a huge fan of the podcast series, and now that it's available as a traditional podcast, it seems odd to call something like a podcast traditional, I'm beside myself. Work used to be so boring, but now with the sweet tones of NBZ harmonizing with Bally played over my workday, my life has become infinitely better.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. With the fan gushing aside, and then he goes on to talk about how he fell out of love with Pokemon, but the new X and Y Pokemon designs were a real appeal for him to get back into the series. And then he went on into some more questions where he says, there are a lot of games out there that I have heard good things about. I'm pretty set on buying Mario Golf and Smash. Both, you'll notice, have high replay value. As someone who doesn't buy that many games per year, are there any games that you suggest for the 3DS that have a high replay value? Right now I have Ocarina of Time 3D and Pokemon Y. I'd breed Pokemon until Z comes out and then breed more. But I feel like if I'm going to be a shut-in, I need to be a shut-in with variety. And then he has another question.
Okay.
I'll just finish it, I guess. And this is more of a speculation question. Nintendo, as I see it, has one more shot to get its main series console back, serious console, I should say, back on track. Assuming they don't revive the Wii U, now here's my question. Nintendo is in a corner. If they pull a Bomberman and drop a bomb in said corner, what happens? Can they escape the aftermath and pull through, the same as they are now, or do they break up the company and save the profitable parts? The 3DS is a great system, so should they go full handheld? Do they split up the dev teams into separate third-party development teams for Mario, Zelda, DK, all of the great Nintendo staples? I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the matter. You two are very knowledgeable about the subject, and I like the critical aspect of the series, so I'm just attempting to offer some fuel. I'm a huge fan of this series, love the fact that I can listen at work, and keep it up, guys. So yeah, long email, Daniel, but I guess we'll address the first part, the first question, I should say, which was...
Talking about replay value in games on 3DS, right?
Exactly.
So there are quite a few games on 3DS which you could sink hundreds of hours into. The main one, which I don't know if you didn't mention it, is Animal Crossing New Leaf, which you can literally spend just like a whole year on. If you want to buy a game that is going to offer you value for money in terms of the time you put into it, Animal Crossing is a massive time sink, and I don't know if that's your kind of genre, if that's what you're into, but man, I would go for that, definitely. Especially if you've never played an Animal Crossing game before. Your first Animal Crossing, as everyone says, is your favorite Animal Crossing. And New Leaf is a great entry to the series. So, I put 46 hours into it, and I didn't even play it that much. So, there's plenty of time to be sucked out of that. So the other one, the big one, is Mario Kart 7, of course, which I put almost 50 hours into that thing. Of course, it kind of is necessary to be playing the online for this, especially you say you're going to get Smash and Mario Golf, both of which I believe have online modes and are going to have a lot of replay value. Mario Kart it's a time sink. It's a huge time sink. So I'd offer that as a suggestion, definitely.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that if you look at my 3DS, and the two games that I've sunk the most time into by a long way aren't any of the adventure games or the story games with missions and stuff like that. Well, I guess this game does have missions, but my two games are Mario Kart, I agree, and I've sunk loads of time with you and others online and playing through all the GPs, getting 150cc triple star and all that. But the other game that I've spent a lot of time on, probably a lot more than you actually, NBZ, is Pilot Wings.
Yeah.
I have this obsession with trying to get like a perfect score in every single mission in that game, and it's a really, at times, relaxing game. It's a great looking game. I mean, there was loads of pressure before it came out. It's just like, when is there going to be another Pilot Wings sort of thing? And I think it's a really great game. I mean, I got it on launch. It was the only game I owned for ages, and yeah, I really sunk a lot of time into that. So I don't know if that would be your style of game, Daniel, but that might be a suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would offer up Fire Emblem as well because
I was gonna say
it's it's similar to Pokemon. Like you can play through multiple. Well, I mean, not similar to Pokemon, but in the way that there is a lot to do. Like there is a huge amount to do in Fire Emblem, and it can last you hundreds and hundreds of hours. I don't think there's much more. I mean, another game that I've got a lot of time into is Mario and Luigi, but that's like you're not going to replay that a lot. That's just a really long game to start off with, and I'm not going to go back to it. So
I would suggest, although neither of us have played it, and it's similar to Mario and Luigi in that it's just a long game to play through, is Bravely Default.
Yes,
it's just come out. Just come out like a couple of months now, I guess.
Well, I mean, it came out in the UK in like November, so that's been here for a while. But definitely for the US, it's relatively fresh. So that's definitely a good option. I know people have their problems with that game, but it is apparently like an 80-hour JRPG, so you will definitely not run short of things to do in something like that. So yeah, good suggestion, Bally. good one. So, what was his other question then?
Yeah, so the second half of the email and questions is basically Nintendo in a corner. What happens? Do they split up the company? Do they give the first party icons Mario, Zelda, DK to third party development teams? Where do you think Nintendo are going to go? What do they do? Because like he said, and I agree, they are in a corner.
Yeah, so it's really the question of how long do they ride out Wii U, and do they push themselves to make it like a 5 year lifespan, or do they get back to the drawing board straight away and try and come up with something else? I think that they really need to go back to the drawing board. I don't think Wii U is savable at this point. It is on the level of GameCube, if not below, in terms of its sales potential, and it's just dropping faster and faster. As PS4 and Xbox One start to get broader and better game libraries, and they're having all the third-party stuff and their own stuff, and they're much more impressive, and people are much more drawn towards them. Wii U becomes more and more irrelevant, and so they need to start pushing forward and doing something different, honestly, because it's not going to last them for a good amount of time. And there'll be good games on Wii U, and I know that they're going to get a great Zelda out and Smash and everything, but I think it's best to just abandon ship.
I'd have to disagree, actually. I'm a bit more positive. I think that there's so much more to come from the Wii U, and I'm talking specifically first-party games. I feel like there's so much to come that there's no reason why it can't even outsell the GameCube. I mean, obviously you have to write off any kind of Wii sales, but I think with games, and I think this year is a really great tester. I mean, by the end of this year, I think it'll be really clear whether the Wii U is literally completely out of it, or whether it can do a GameCube and actually sell, well, not great, but kind of bobble along the bottom, because it's even worse than bobbling along the bottom at the moment. So I think games like specifically Mario Kart and Smash, I think it's incredibly important to see how well those sell, and that I think from there it'll be clearer whether you're right or I'm right.
Right, definitely. The question really is, though, with the install base right now, are those games enough to draw a large enough audience that they'd be able to save it? I mean, I could understand, being able to write it out if they had a large enough install base, and then those games would sell extremely well. But it's whether people can justify the purchase of the system to get to those games. And that's the real big thing.
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean, I honestly can't answer that, and I guess we'll just have to see the stats.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, by the end of this year, we'll know.
Yeah,
by the end of this year, we will have the cards on the table, and I'm pretty sure we can make a more balanced kind of assessment then.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But we do need to wait.
While something like Zelda is, for us Nintendo fans, is a massive game, and it's absolutely the best thing Nintendo produce, it's a drop in the pan compared to how important Mario Kart is in terms of system sales. And I think
Definitely.
That's why I agree that end of the year we'll know.
Yeah. But in terms of, like, if they were to split things up and go only handheld next generation, I definitely think Nintendo can ride out at least a couple, if not 3 more generations, failing, and still be able to do okay for themselves. I would be very sad if they left the console business, because that's what I've grown up with. Those are the consoles that I've owned, and they're the ones that I have a huge amount of memories for. Although I am much more of a handheld guy, and I'd be perfectly okay with them pushing all of their resources into one. Imagine if they pushed all their resources into a single system. Like, the amount they did with 3DS last year was phenomenal. And just imagine if all of Wii U development was pushed towards that as well. Like, all these games that are coming out would be coming out for a single system. They would be able to justify that extremely well just with their games alone. But yeah, I would be disappointed if they left the console business.
And I guess maybe the positive is that, like, handhelds are more similar to home consoles than they've ever been before. The graphics are getting better, the hard drives are better, they can do more. I mean, the PS4 and the Vita are a great example. Like, you can have very, very similar experiences, whereas 20 years ago they were just completely different. So I feel like maybe Nintendo's next console is, yeah, just a handheld system, and I don't know whether that might be virtual reality or whether you can plug it into a wall or whether it's just chargeable, but I think that you could argue there's going to be a merge between handheld and console experiences.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think that we talked that out enough. We're kind of coming to the end here of this listener mail segment, but thank you very much for...
That river's gonna run dry, though.
Yes, exactly. We have a few questions left, but definitely keep sending them in, and we are going to be responding to more of your listener mail. So send them to the email address, which is Bally.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
And yes, we look forward to all the
We
correspondence.
read them all.
We do. We read every single one. So so do that, and we'll
it gives us great pleasure.
It does indeed. So that's going to end off this segment, but do not go anywhere, because we will come right back with a discussion of where Nintendo are right now, state of the industry, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. And we are back with the third and final segment of the show, and this segment is going to be more of covering some recent news that has come out, and a bit of looking at Nintendo and how they're shaping up, in terms for E3 coming up soon and that stuff. So I think we're going to kick it off with some talk about the new details coming out about Mario Kart 8. A lot of new information, about some new items and tracks and all that good stuff, and what retro tracks are coming back. Bally, why don't you jump in and talk about some of this Mario Kart 8 stuff?
Yeah, so I guess Nintendo let in lots of journalists to try out basically the new revamped, fresh, ready-to-go version of the game, and I think they had the chance to play on 16 of the what's going to be 32 tracks, including some really great retro tracks coming back. Just before I talk about those tracks, I just have to say how amazing everything looks. I think even comparisons between this and the Wii version, it just looks unbelievable. It really reminds me, although I've not played it and I really want to buy it, it reminds me of the bloom effect in Wind Waker HD. It's really, everything's so sort of sunlit, if that makes sense. It's really hard to describe, and really like almost shiny, and the water effects are very, very clear and crisp, and it just looks really nice. And that's without even seeing the game actually in action. That's just video content online.
Right.
But yeah, so some of my favorite tracks that have been announced. My personal favorite from the N64 version of Mario Kart was Royal Raceway. So they've brought it back for the new Mario Kart 8, and they've given it a sort of autumnal kind of... No, it's not autumnal, that's wrong. It's a spring look. It's like blossom, and it's just loads of trees covered in blossom with petals floating around, and it just looks really amazing. And it was a really cool track. Like it's that traditional race style track where it's basically grass on the sides and just tarmac on the road. It's none of this like desert or anything. It's very traditional, and I those are probably my favorite types of tracks in the Mario Kart franchise. And what they add to this track just looks great.
So like they are doing all this stuff with anti-grav and everything, and from what I've seen in the videos, like it doesn't seem to make a huge difference unless you're really paying attention to the areas around the track and what direction they're facing and whether they're upside down or not. It seems like you don't really notice. Do you think that that very much undermines even the implementation of it in the game to begin with? You know, that it's not really visible?
To some degree. I think I'm not going to be able to fully judge, obviously, until I've played it. But there is a new feature that they've made more clear that you can now do when you're in almost Back to the Future mode with the DeLorean's wheels coming up. It's just like
Right.
that, isn't it? It's sort of, so there is a feature they made clear with the anti-gravity, and that is that when you hit off other players, because your wheels are spinning on their side, if that makes sense, they've decided that you get a boost when you bump into someone, which is quite
Yeah.
interesting. You get a mini boost, which is quite cool. So I mean, that's obviously a really little thing to add, but you never know. It might make for a lot of gameplay additions. In terms of what you were saying about, it doesn't really feel different. I mean, because you're always following the back of the cart. You're not.
Yeah.
Um, I guess that's true to some degree, but that didn't stop me, for example, in F-Zero GX thinking, "Whoa, this stage is really cool," and that's regardless of the speed. I felt and that was the same camera to some degree, and
Yeah.
I do think that some of the tracks, especially Shy Guy Falls, which we can talk about in a second.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that combination of just the changing in angles is something that I think will be really cool, and I actually think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think in that particular implementation it's very effective just because you're using the environment and because something like a waterfall is so familiar, the fact that you're going down or going up one and you see, you know, things and how the angles change when you come off them, that makes a big difference, I think. It's just like in the tracks where it's more sort of indoors and you're on the side of the wall, like it doesn't seem like it's going to make a huge amount of difference. So I guess it depends on the individual tracks, but yeah, we'll see how that shapes out.
One thing that's maybe getting to me a little bit that I was hoping for is just that I really wanted them to. The second they announced that there was this anti-gravity and all of a sudden the cars were hovering, it just for some reason made me feel like they should speed up the game.
Yeah,
Make it more F-Zero like. If you're not going to give us F-Zero, at least give us a quicker Mario Kart. I mean, from everything I've seen, and I don't know what CC these new videos appearing on YouTube
I believe a
are
lot of
in.
them are at 150.
If
So
that's the case, then it's a little bit of a shame because it seems like it's not sped up at all since the Wii version
sure.
or
I
Mario Kart
mean, I
7.
didn't have a problem with the Wii version in terms of speed. I thought it was perfectly fine and well paced. But my problems with the Wii version are just that it was, you know, it was a fucking like Jose Otero in the recent Nintendo voice chat referred to the Wii version as just a chaotic clusterfuck or something to that degree, and I would completely agree with him on that point. Like, too many races and too much shit going on. And,
You know that this one is 12 racers.
oh God,
It is.
save
But
me, please.
honestly, regardless of the fact it's 12 racers, I honestly think that the jump from 7 to 8 is the smallest Mario Kart jump there's ever been.
Oh, undoubtedly, like that is.
And I think that might
perfectly
help you,
clear.
MBZ. I mean, you're good at 7. I think we could have some tight battles.
I mean, maybe, yeah, you know, it may mean that I'm better at this game. It seems like they're kind of drawing elements from the Wii version and 7. This definitely feels like a mashup of those two, with a couple of new elements thrown in. You know, because the bikes have been brought back, but they're also keeping the underwater and flying segments. So those two key components of the other two games are in here. And then they're throwing the anti-grav thing on top. There are a
What?
couple of new items that were
Yeah.
announced as well. What do you think of those? And what
So
are
the
they?
3 items, as far as I was aware, are the coin. So it basically gives you 2 coins. It's a bit boring, but I mean that's quite helpful to improve your top speed.
Yeah.
There's the boomerang, where
Right. Yeah, that looks really cool.
yeah. So it has a meter in the top left, where you have 3 uses, and it'll go down each time you use it, and it will fire similar to a green shell in a straight line I don't know how far it goes. It goes pretty far though, and then it hits anyone in that radius, and then comes straight back to you, and it can hit people going both ways. And yeah, it's great because you get three bites at the cherry, like to use that. I don't know if it
Yeah.
works backwards. That would be quite cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting as well. I definitely like the fact that Mario Kart always sticks to the theme, the Mario theme, but finds interesting ways to implement those items. And the boomerang's something that's been in Mario platformers for years and years, and they've put it into Mario Kart, and it's like it feels like a fresh, brand new thing, which I think is awesome, and they've really done a great job with that. And they did kind of a similar thing with this new Piranha Plant item, right?
Yeah, that's probably my favorite out of the new items I've seen. It's just really cool. I mean, regardless of who's near you, it always bites. So it constantly snaps, and it has like a certain number of snaps. And when it snaps, it lurches your car in that direction. Now, the great thing about this is that if you're driving beside someone, it'll naturally home in on them, just like 3D World, and just snap at them. So it's basically like a speed boost combined with sort of semi-invincibility, which is quite nice. And hopefully, if you can pick up that item quite high up the field, it could be pretty powerful.
Yeah, it almost seems like a star, but a little bit
Yeah.
of variation there. So,
Mm.
so that's cool. That's cool.
One more thing that they've changed is that you can no longer hold. So say you get a banana and you hold your banana behind you, you can't pick up another banana. If you're holding a banana behind you, you can't pick up any items, which is interesting because I think
Yeah.
that really stops players in first place and second place often just defending from like red shells and stuff like that.
Yeah, because as soon as you get hit by one, you don't have one in backup to replace it with, and
Yeah.
then keep the cycle going essentially. Because as soon as you get hit, you deploy the next one, get a new item box, and get another one stacked up.
Yeah.
So it really does ruin that kind of first place mentality.
Yeah, so there's no more stacking, although I think there might still be triple bananas, which would make sense.
And I've been hearing from a lot of people that the presence of the blue shell has been greatly reduced. That hardly any people, when they were playing, for many, many races, got hit by a blue shell or even got access to a blue shell.
Well, here's the interesting thing: is that it's the new blue shell. It's the 7 blue shell, which is the one that is similar to even the N64 one, where it goes along the ground and it hits people on the way and then blows up on first place, which changes a lot for me in this game because, like I said, it's a 12-man pack. So if
Definitely.
you get a blue shell in 12th, you can hit an awful lot of people if they're driving in the wrong racing line. So
Sure.
it could be interesting. Maybe that's why they've made it a little more rare, because it does even more damage to the rest of the pack.
Definitely.
I guess we should move on to a bit of the other announcements.
Yeah. Covered a good amount of Mario Kart. We'll talk about it a lot when it comes out, but some nice new info for sure.
We're going to be playing it absolutely loads, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So Nintendo announced today that they're doing a Smash Brothers specific Nintendo Direct this Tuesday, 11 p.m. GMT. That's the British time for all you Americans. I can't do the maths and work out the American time.
I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern.
That makes sense. Okay, so yeah, what's going to be in it?
Well, I don't know. They're being very cagey about it. And the thing is, when people listen to this, everyone will already know. So we're just sitting here in the dark. Everyone will know what they've announced. Do you think it will be on the scale of major character reveals, or are they going to be holding that back for E3? Do you think, because what I'm thinking is they're going to be talking more about compatibility between 3DS and Wii U versions, and more specifics, and kind of drilling down into more of that minutia, as opposed to focusing on characters and items and the like.
I agree, but I think it would be a massive mistake if they do an exclusive, not exclusive direct to their Nintendo. They are exclusive, but they do this. They do this direct and not even bring up a new character. I think they will bring up a new character, but I do agree with you. I think they'll explain more than just items and characters. I think it's gonna be an in-depth. This is why you need both versions. I think that's the selling line of this direct. I think it's gonna be
Right.
for those of you who have a 3DS, these are the benefits, and for those of you who have a Wii U, these are the benefits, and for all of those who don't have a Wii U, which is the vast majority, this is why you have to buy one, because it links up like this, and you have to get this benefit, and it'll be the old traditional, you have to buy red and blue, otherwise you can't get all the Pokemon kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could do a lot of cool things with connectivity between 3DS and Wii U. Especially, like, take into consideration Street Pass, for example. Imagine if Street Passing allowed you for, like, trading trophies or something to that degree, or you know, getting trophies for Street Passing with people. That would be great, and especially if you could bring it back home and then sync the data to Wii U and have, you know, your consistent trophy collection across the two versions. I think that would be amazing. They haven't really said anything regarding whether the trophy collection will be the same in both versions, or whether, similarly to how the 3DS is focusing on handheld stuff, will there be handheld exclusive trophies on there and console exclusive trophies on Wii U? We don't know.
Or even if they just had maybe like a unified online account, so I could be Bally on my 3DS and my Wii U, and when I fight online in either game, I have like a profile that all those stats go into, and then based on how many wins I get, I might unlock something that, and regardless of whether I'm playing on the Move or on my Wii U, I'm accumulating something.
Definitely. I'm not sure, like, to what degree they're going to go into the online and do some cool stuff, but Sakurai did a great job with Kid Icarus Uprising in terms of making a very competent online infrastructure. And so I think that, you know, after the failures of the Wii version, he's definitely going to be striving to make some steps here and do some really interesting stuff. And especially with the help of Namco behind them, it really does help them to kind of shape that and do some interesting things. So I don't know, when it comes back to like the character reveal, as you were talking about, you think that they will at least have one character reveal. I don't think they're gonna do a huge one here. I think that saving like a really massive one for E3, or at least 2 or 3 for E3, is going to be their game plan. But maybe they'll say like, oh, by the way, Yoshi is in the game, there you go, because they still haven't announced him, I believe, right?
And they've not announced Ness or Jigglypuff, both of which have been in all of the games up to this point.
Sure, so they could just take this as an opportunity to say, by the way, these guys are coming back, enjoy, right?
Yeah,
you know, that could be a thing.
But still, there's always part of me that just thinks Nintendo just have something absolutely out of this world up their sleeve. And whether that's brand new international online tournaments or something nuts like that, or I can't even think of anything else.
You know, like cross-compatibility in terms of like being on 3DS and being able to play people on Wii U, that's something that I think is a bit outside of their sphere, but, you know, maybe that's a thing that could happen.
That's true. I mean, what if you could have like home and away, so the 3DS players, you can only ever access the Wii U stages when you're playing online with Wii U players or something.
Right.
And
that would be interesting.
And you think, well, I want to try out those stages, so I better link up online. I don't know.
That's an interesting concept. Yeah, for sure. That could work.
I mean, for them to want to talk about stuff in the Direct now and not just leave it for E3 is really intriguing.
It does kind of make you feel like, do they have this much more to reveal?
Yeah.
Like, is Smash Brothers just this treasure trove? I mean, it already is, but how much do they have to show us, really? Like, there must be a ton of stuff, because if they're doing a really focused Direct, and there's still E3 to come, it kind of calls into question, they're doing this Direct pretty early. You know, Smash Brothers hasn't even got a release date confirmed. Maybe it's coming out sooner than we think, and maybe they'll even announce a release date. Do you think that's feasible at this point for them to say that?
Yeah, I think that this could be a big announcement for lots of intricate things that the game does, and then the grand finale is it's coming this year. I think that could be why they want to do this direct. But like I said, it's very strange. You would expect Nintendo to do maybe a regular direct later in April with one character reveal for Brawl, not Brawl. Goodness
Smash.
Smash. Okay, they need it. They need it, like
a subtitle, right?
Yeah,
Do you think
like,
that's something that will happen? Get a proper subtitle?
I don't think. I don't know. Hard to say. But
yeah.
Like I said, it's strange that it's not just a little part of a regular direct, and it's its own thing. It's really strange.
Yeah, especially when, you see the trend of the focus directs. They very much happen like weeks before the game comes out. Like the Wonderful 101 direct and the Pikmin 3 direct. They were specifically targeted for, marketing purposes to a degree, where they're like, this game is coming out soon, here's some info on it. And, I don't think Smash Brothers is weeks away from being released, so it's curious. It's definitely curious. It's a new tack they're taking. I feel like they just want to build hype at this point, and
Well, it's working because I'm really excited about Tuesday night.
Oh yeah. I'm super stoked for it. We're both excited, so we'll be watching. At this point, we will have already seen it by the time this episode goes up. So I guess we'll talk about it next time on the podcast. But all of you who know what happened in it, I guess you can now see whether our predictions were right or wrong, and there you go. So hope that was at least interesting. So another big thing that happened recently was the release of Game Boy Advance games on Virtual Console and Wii U. And there were 3 which came out yesterday, which was the 3rd. We're recording this on the 4th of April. Advance Wars and Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga and Metroid Fusion all came out. And I know, Bally, you've already bought Advance Wars.
Yes, I was really gutted that Advance Wars wasn't a part of the Ambassador program. And being a big Advance Wars fan, I was elated, to put it mildly, that that it was in the first bat. It wasn't even initially it was just Advance Wars on this day. They hadn't even mentioned Fusion or.
And I mean, initially, it was only Metroid Fusion, Superstar Saga, and I believe Yoshi's Island on GBA that was announced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then at that point, Japan got an Advance Wars 1 and 2 combo announced, and I was God, that was a real kick in the balls.
Right, Japan got all these games and we got 3.
So, I mean, I've not tried it out yet, and that's really what I'm going to be playing over the next fortnight, along with a bit of Nintendo Land. So, I guess I'll have to let everyone know what I think next time.
Yeah, what do you think about the pricing of the GBA games on Virtual Console? Do you think they're charging too much?
So, I paid £6.25, and to be honest, although I've not played it yet, and apparently there's very nice manuals and added content that kind of helps out with the streamlining experience of the game, I guess. But that is too much in my opinion. I would always relate GBA games to Super Nintendo games. I don't think they're graphically a whole lot different. I don't think that what you do in those games are a whole lot different. I mean, in Japan,
they're very similar in complexity.
Yeah, in Japan, Advance Wars first came out on the Super Nintendo, the Super Famicom.
Yeah, it was called Super Famicom Wars.
And it really doesn't look a whole lot different from Advance Wars 1 on the GBA, and I think it's a shame that it wasn't £5. So maybe I'm getting a little bit too angry about an extra £1.25, but I mean, it's just a little bit expensive. I can't remember how much it is in US dollars. Can you remember?
I think maybe $6.99, or maybe that's your. I think maybe $7.99, $6.99, $7.99, something along those lines for USD. But yeah, I do feel it's a little above like the I'm gonna jump in and pay for it now kind of thing, because I would probably get Superstar Saga, but I mean, I've just recently finished playing Dream Team, and I kind of want to break from that series for a while after the hours I put in there. I know Superstar Saga is a much better game and a much more bite-sized game, so I'll get it eventually. And Metroid Fusion, one of my favorite games ever, but I have it on 3DS. There's really no reason for me to buy it on Wii U, so I'm just kind of wasting money there. But yeah, a lot of people have been praising the emulation on GBA of the GBA games on Wii U, and saying that there's a load of cool features. So you can report back on that next time and find out. So
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So I guess let's just have a quick few comments on how we think Nintendo is shaping up before E3.
Right, and I mean the big question is what they're going to do in terms of the press conference, right? Because last year they, bowed out and they decided to do a Nintendo Direct on the internet, which was a bad idea in my opinion. I thought it was fine for relating the news to everyone, but the American stream was terrible. It was super laggy and the people could hardly watch it. The European one was just barely doable, and it just kind of it wasn't very impressive on their part. If they're going to do that again, they have to get it right. They have to be able to stream properly and not fall under the pressure of all the people watching. So what do you think, Bally? Do you think they'll be going on stage, or do you think they'll just pull back and do a direct again?
I think they'd get an awful lot of criticism if they do a direct again. And people have said, it costs a lot to do a press conference. It costs nothing if you're as big as Nintendo. It's like a few $1 million. That is a drop in the ocean when you're talking about companies the size of these companies. I think
sure.
It's a massive mistake to not do it. This is Nintendo's time to shine in the West, and that is something they're just not doing right now with Wii U. And they have some great games lined up that they can show off and prove to everyone that they make great games, and you need to buy a Wii U. And unless they've lost faith in their own development, I don't see why they shouldn't go to E3.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo have always been like the masters of hype and building up excitement, and one of the key components of that is their press conference at E3. It's always, been an event that I've looked forward to, and Nintendo fans look forward to every year. It's when they go all out and blow our minds with the latest greatest stuff they have in store. So I would be sorely disappointed if they didn't do it, and I think that they have learned their lesson. I really hope that that they're just gonna, make the right decision, do the stage show, and be done with it. So yeah. And I guess, that's pretty much all we have time for in this segment. But, some cool stuff coming up on the horizon. We're excited for all these things. And that is going to basically close out the show. So before we say goodbye, we are going to plug ourselves. So, Bally, where can people find you on the internet?
My Twitter is at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. And that is also my name on Miiverse. So go and follow me there. I might post some stuff about Advance Wars.
Yeah, exactly. I've been falling off the Miiverse kind of posting thing in a while. I haven't really had much to play on Wii U, so that's a degree of reason why. But, new stuff's coming out. Mario Kart's coming out. I'll be drawing some pictures, some crappy pictures on Miiverse. So you can follow me there at Lordnbz, and I'm at Lordnbz on Twitter also. Keep up to date with all the latest stuff. So.
And remember to give us those iTunes reviews. I mean, they're so important to the show. If you really and truly want this show to grow, get better, get more fans, have more communication between us and you guys, then it would really, really help us out.
Definitely. We've had one review so far, which we're really thankful for, so we want to get another one by next time. So
that's the aim, guys. That's the aim.
Take up the mantle, take up the challenge, give us a review on iTunes.
And we'll give you a massive shout out, promise.
Definitely. We should just start reading out the reviews on the show. But yeah, that's going to be closing us out. You can always, again, reminder of the email address, which you can send emails to. Keep doing that because we have a few left, but we want some more questions. So the email address is Bally.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
And we look forward to your responses. But that is going to be us. So thank you once again for listening. And we'll see you all next time.
See you later, guys.
last you the whole year. If you're into things that you want to play consistently over a... Sorry, my mic just got muted. Did you hear that get muted? Hello?
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 Bally?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. That's really weird that you muted then, because I muted mine by accident at the same time.
What the fuck?
Like, I'm serious. It was really weird. I pressed it by accident, and then you went off, and I was like, what have I done?
So did I. What? Okay. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Okay. Where
Okay.
were we?